Jay Walder will not renew his MTRC contract next year. A corruption trial involving Raphael Hui and Sanunkai's joint chairman, and Thailand's anti-graft commission to indict Yingluck Shinawat.
Hello and a very good evening. The Chief Executive Officer of the MTR Corporation, Jay Walder, will not be renewing his contract when it expires next year. The railway company says his departure has nothing to do with the delay in the construction of the local section of a high-speed rail project. Rani Samtani has our top story tonight.
MTRC Chairman Raymond Chan apologized to shareholders over a 2-year delay of the high-speed rail project at the railway company's annual general meeting this morning.
I also regret any impact that you feel this issue may have had on you, our shareholders. The full extent of the delay was only understood at the most senior level in early April. And so our 2013 annual report, prepared earlier this year, still referred to a 2015 target.
The MTRC's Chief Executive Officer, Jay Walder, refused to say whether he would step down because the local section of the Guangzhou-Shenzhen-Hong Kong Express rail link will not begin services next year as originally planned. But during the shareholders' meeting, Chan explained that Walder will not be renewing his contract once it expires in August next year. The MTRC insists that Walder's departure has nothing to do with the delay in the rail link.
This was a mutual agreement that we had reached last year. The contract was renewed in August of 2013, and it fit, to be frank, it fit our family purposes, and that's why we wanted to do it.
A global search for a new CEO will start soon.
It's not an easy job at all. It's going to take some time to find the suitable person. We're going to look externally and internally. And in due course, we're going to announce a successor for Mr. Walder.
Frederick Ma heads the independent committee that will be reviewing the management of the MTR's high-speed railway project. The committee will have its first meeting tomorrow. Several political groups protested outside this morning's meeting, demanding that Walder resign. Labour Party Vice Chairman Tam Chun Yin said Walder should leave now instead of waiting until 2015. And Michael Tian, chairman of the LegCo Railway Subcommittee, said Walder needs to be held accountable for his actions.
Based on the recent series of incidents at the MTR operating level in terms of the delay and whatnot, and the fact that the express rail link is now delayed by 2 years, that alone should cause his entire bonus to be withheld. So that very unprofessional action also needs to be addressed. And I see no way other than a cut in his pay for the remaining part of the term or an early termination of his contract.
Meanwhile, Secretary for Transport and Housing Anthony Chung refused to speak about Walder. He also wouldn't comment on rumors that he plans to resign over the handling of the MTRC's delayed rail project.
Over this particular incident, I have been reflecting on the rights and wrongs of what I've done. But in the meanwhile, my most immediate task is to make sure that the express rail project would proceed as quickly as possible, to have any delay minimized as far as possible, and to work with the MTR Corporation to reduce any possible cost overrun.
Chung stressed that steps will be taken to strengthen the MTR Corporation board and that the government will nominate additional board members. Rani Samtani, TVB News.
A high-profile corruption trial involving former Chief Secretary for Administration Raphael Hui and Sanunkai Properties joint chairman Thomas and Raymond Kwok opened this morning. All 5 defendants in the case have pleaded not guilty to the charges, which involved $34 billion in cash payments and advantages. The trial is expected to last 70 days. Raphael Hui, a former Chief Secretary for Administration and the second in command in the SAR government, is the highest-ranking ex-government official to date to stand trial at the High Court. Arriving amid a flurry of media, the other four defendants include Thomas Kwok and his younger brother Raymond, joint chairman of Sanonkai Properties, as well as the real estate giant's executive director Thomas Chan and former senior vice president of Hong Kong Exchanges and Clearing Francis Kwan. The high-profile case saw the courtroom packed with legal teams and reporters. For those who could not get in, a simultaneous broadcast of the public hearing was arranged in the lobby outside. The prosecution is putting forward 8 charges surrounding misconduct in public office and conspiring to offer advantages to a public servant, all of them involving Hui. The 5 defendants all pleaded not guilty to the charges. To ensure a fair trial, Justice Andrew McRae restricted media reports to only the basic facts, such as the names and occupations of defendants and the charges involved, until further notice. The trial is scheduled to last 70 days. Raphael Hui was Chief Secretary for Administration from 2005 to 2007 and continued to serve in the Executive Council as an unofficial member until 2009. But accusations against him date back as far as the year 2000, as he played other key roles in the government. All 8 charges in the trial involve Hui. The first misconduct in public office charge accuses Hui of failing to declare his acceptance of the use of rent-free apartments in Happy Valley and 2 unsecured loans totaling $2.4 million from a Sanonkai subsidiary, as well as the negotiations of a consultancy contract while he was managing director of the Mandatory Provident Fund Schemes Authority between 2000 and 2003. The second charge accuses Hui and Thomas Kwok of conspiracy to commit misconduct in public office. It alleges that Hui accepted, while he was chief secretary from 2005 to 2007, a $5 million cash check from Kwok to willfully misconduct himself to be favorably disposed to Kwok. Charges 3 and 4 accuse Hui and Raymond Kwok of conspiring to commit misconduct in public office and furnishing false information. The charges allege that a company controlled by Hui received more than $4.12 million from Sanonkai and produced a fake invoice for it. The 5th charge accuses all 5 defendants of conspiracy to commit misconduct in public office, with Hui allegedly accepting $8.5 million from the others for being favorably disposed to Sanonkai Properties and/or its subsidiaries and associates. Charge 6 is another misconduct in public office charge against Hui, accusing him of accepting $3 million of unsecured loans from a Sanonkai subsidiary. Charge 7 accuses all 5 defendants of conspiracy to offer advantages to a public servant, in this case giving Hui more than $11 million between 2005 and 2009. The 8th charge accuses Hui of misconduct in public office for allegedly accepting more than $11 million between 2007 and 2009 without declaring it while he was an EXCO member. The 5 defendants have pleaded not guilty to all charges against them.
Turning overseas now, Thailand's Anti-Graft Commission has decided to indict ousted Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra over charges of dereliction of duty in overseeing a controversial rice subsidy program. The decision comes a day after the Constitutional Court ousted Yingluck and 9 cabinet members for abuse of power. As James Aiken reports, the legal troubles could end any hopes of a political comeback for Yingluck.
Thai police investigate a grenade attack at the home of a Constitutional Court judge early this morning. The judge belongs to the court which ousted Yingluck Shinawatra and 9 of her ministers from office Wednesday after finding her guilty of abusing power. A bank and a research facility were also targeted overnight. No one was hurt in the attacks, but they underscore the deep political divide in Thailand. For opposition protesters, however, Yingluck's removal is reason to celebrate.
Today, I think we're just trying to push forward and trying to ask everybody to accept the court's decision and push forward for a new government so that we can push forward all the necessary reforms.
I think that many people will see this verdict today as a power play, a way of getting rid of Yingluck, but certainly many people will now see this not as legalistic and as a enforcement of the rule of law, but rather a game of politics.
And Yingluck's political troubles got even worse today. Thailand's National Anti-Corruption Commission has voted unanimously to indict her for a controversial rice subsidy scheme. The program was a flagship policy of Yingluck's administration, but it lost billions of dollars. If impeached by the Senate and found guilty, Yingluck would be barred from politics for 5 years.
As for a real democratically elected government, we don't know if elections will now take place in July. But if there isn't a proper government in place when the next fiscal year begins in October, what's going to happen to the rudderless, pilotless economy?
With more uncertainty looming, both pro- and anti-government rallies are being planned in Bangkok, raising fears of more clashes and more violence. James Aiken, TVB News.
In Beijing, a senior foreign ministry official is downplaying an incident between Chinese and Vietnamese ships in disputed waters in the South China Sea. The Vietnamese Coast Guard says video it's released shows a Chinese ship deliberately ramming a Vietnamese vessel. It says several Vietnamese Coast Guard vessels were rammed and sprayed with water cannon in the incident Sunday. It happened near the disputed Paracel Islands, called the Xixias by Beijing. That's where a Chinese state-owned oil rig was moved, spiraling tensions in the region. The Vietnamese Foreign Ministry said considerable damage was caused to the Vietnamese ships and 6 people suffered minor injuries. China's Vice Foreign Minister Chen Guoping said today the incident was not a clash. He told the media he believes China and Vietnam could resolve disputes at sea peacefully and maintain friendship and cooperation despite the incident.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has softened his tone in his confrontation with the West over Ukraine, saying Moscow has pulled its troops away from the Ukrainian border. He's also called for a delay in a referendum on secession from Ukraine in 2 provinces currently held by pro-Russia separatists. Alan Buckner reports.
It was the first sign the Kremlin leader has given that he would not endorse the results of the referendum currently scheduled for May 11th. And in what could be a breakthrough in the worst crisis between the East and West since the Cold War, Putin said he's pulled back his tens of thousands of troops who were posted near the border with Ukraine. While welcoming the news, the U.S. State Department said it still has no evidence of a troop pullback. It also greeted Putin's call to postpone the referendum with skepticism.
We've made clear that we believe the proposed May 11th referendum are both illegal and illegitimate, and we need to see more from President Putin than simply calling for it to be postponed.
In eastern Ukraine, preparations for the referendum continue with mixed reaction to Putin's call for a delay. Separatist leaders in Donetsk said they will discuss a postponement at a meeting later today, but a group in Luhansk rejected the Russian leader's appeal. And in the Ukrainian capital, Kiev, preparations continue for a presidential election on May 25th, something Putin yesterday called a step in the right direction, a comment welcomed by the U.S. State Department.
And we would call on Russia to use its influence with the militant groups to ensure a safe and secure environment for all Ukrainians to cast their ballots on May 25th.
Putin also called on Ukraine's military to halt its operations against the pro-Russian separatists. At the same time, Ukraine's acting Prime Minister, Arseniy Yatsenyuk, visited a military camp in Slavyansk, where anti-insurgent operations have been taking place. He called on the separatists to surrender their weapons. The counteroffensive has so far had limited success. Troops in the eastern port of Mariupol briefly captured the rebel-held city hall, but quickly abandoned it, leaving the building back in the hands of the separatists. At least 35 people have been killed in the fighting between the Ukrainian army and the rebels. Alan Buckner, TVB News.
And still ahead in our news tonight. Beijing police detain an outspoken journalist. Greg So says an apparent protest parcel referred to the police, and experts say half of the local population at risk of getting zombie.